Hi, Shaker. Did you want to start?
Thank you, Nathan. Of course, I will start. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Inclusion International site event on the Listen, Include, Respect guidelines. My name is Shikil Khatami. I am from the UAE. I'm a representative of the Middle East and the North African region on the Council of the Inclusion International. I am a national representative for the South African group of Down Syndrome International. This objective of this site event is to introduce the work that has been taken to develop the guidelines, listen, include, respect, and to hear more about the experience and challenges of people with disabilities in being included. So, first, let's share some housekeeping details. The first is the Spanish and English translation is available throughout this meeting for the participants on Zoom. To switch to another audio channel, please click the globe button on the black navigation panel at the bottom of your screen and then select the language. Once listening to the audio channel, you can check the globe button again. To mute the background original audio, if you cannot see the globe button, you may need to update the Zoom. The second is, please feel free to say hello and introduce yourselves from the Zoom chat. The third thing is, if you have a question for our panelists, please post them in the Q&A box found by clicking the black navigation panel at the bottom of your screen. If you see a question that is interesting you, please click thumbs up to let us know if you're joining us on Facebook. We have moderators monitoring the comments for questions for your panelists. The fourth is that this session is being recorded. Feel free to contact us if you would like to have the access to the recordings at the email address provided in the chat. The fifth is, please help us to promote this event and tweet the sheet, which includes speaker handles and the hashtag along with the flyer. All about the Listen, Include, Respect are being shared in the chat. The sixth is, we want to make sure this meeting is accessible to everyone. As a reminder to our speakers and anyone commenting in the chat, please make sure to speak slowly and clearly and make sure to use simple language. Do not use jargons or acronyms without explaining what they mean. So, now we're going to introduce the speakers. The first speaker will be Shiva Shrestha, who will share a welcome message. Shiva is an advocate from Nepal. Shiva is a president of the message of the Nepalese Self-Advocacy Organization. Shiva is a regional representative for the Asia Pacific on Inclusion International Council, and the floor is yours, Shiva.
सबैजनालाई नमस्कार। मेरो नाम शिव श्रेष्ठ हो। म नेपालबाट हो। म चाहिँ बौद्धिक अपाङ्ग सङ्घको पनि अध्यक्ष हो र एसियन पेसिफको पनि म मेम्बर हो र सबैजनालाई वेलकम भन्न चाहन्छु। र लिस्ट लिस्ट इन्क्लुजन रेस्पेक्ट भन्नाले संस्थाहरूलाई बौद्धिक अपाङ्गता कसरी काममा सहयोग गर्न सम्बन्धमा बुझ्न सहयोग गर्छन्। गाइडलाइन बनाउँदै छौँ। समावेशी सहभागिता सम्बन्धी आफ्नो लागि बुझ्ने भाषा सूचना समय दिने संस्थाको गतिविधि समावेशी हुने समावेशी सञ्चार सहयोग समावेशी सूचना हुनुपर्ने र समावेशी भन्नाले किन हामीलाई समावेशी गरिनुपर्छ भन्दाखेरि हामी पनि बौद्धिक अपाङ्गता भएका व्यक्ति हौँ। हामी पनि कुनै ठाउँमा कुनै ठाउँमा सहभागिता हुनुपर्छ। जस्तै उदाहरणको लागि हामीले इन्क्लुजन इन्टरनेसनलमा पनि अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय रूपमा पनि हामीलाई पनि समावेशी गरियोस् गर्नुपर्छ भन्न चाहन्छु। किनकि हामी सबै बौद्धिक अपाङ्गता भएका व्यक्तिहरूलाई चाहिँ समावेशी गर्न तर नेपालको तुलनामा हामीलाई पनि समावेशी पहिला गरिने थिएन। आजभोलि चाहिँ हामीलाई पनि समावेशी हामी बौद्धिक अपाङ्गता भएका व्यक्तिलाई पनि समावेशी गरिन्छ। त्यही कारणले गर्दाखेरि आजभोलि बौद्धिक अपाङ्गता भएका व्यक्तिलाई पनि समावेशी गरिएको छ। हामी अहिले उदाहरणको लागि चेकिङ ग्रुप भनेर हामीले पनि नेपालमा पनि बनाइएको छ। त्यसमा हामीले पनि सरल सजिलो सूचना कसरी बनाउनु पर्छ भनेर हामीले पनि गरिएको थियो। त्यही कारणले गर्दाखेरि हामी पनि समावेशी गरिन्छ। अनि मैले थोरै संस्थाको विषयमा कुरो गर्न चाहन्छु। हामीलाई पनि हाम्रो संस्था बौद्धिक अपाङ्ग सङ्घ चाहिँ कसरी भयो भन्दाखेरि बौद्धिक अपाङ्गता अभिभावकले चाहिँ हामीलाई अलिकति अभिभावकले मात्रै काम गर्थ्यो भन्दाखेरि बौद्धिक अपाङ्ग अनि अभिभावकज्यूहरूले चाहिँ हामीलाई बौद्धिक अपाङ्ग सङ्घ बनाउनु पर्छ भनेर भन्नुभएको थियो। अनि बनाइसकेपछि बौद्धिक अपाङ्ग सङ्घ बनाइसकेपछि हामीले चाहिँ धेरै कामहरू गरेका छौँ। क्षमता विकास तालिमहरू हाम्रो लागि संस्था चाहिन्छ। किन संस्था नभइकन हामी अगाडि बढ्न सक्दैनौँ। हामीहरूलाई पनि तालिम चाहिन्छ। त्यही कारणले गर्दाखेरि त्यही कारणले गर्दाखेरि म चाहिँ सबैजनालाई धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु किनभने यहाँसम्म साइड इभेन्टमा आइदिनु भयो र सबै कामहरू छोडेर आइदिनु भयो। त्यही कारणले गर्दाखेरि अब म सबैलाई वेलकम गर्दै धन्यवाद दिँदै मैले चाहिँ शेखालाई नै दिए। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Shiva. The second speaker is Keela McEwen, who will also share a welcome message. Keela is a South African from the USA. Keela works for the National Down Syndrome Society. Keela is the first registered lobbyist on the Capitol Hill with Down syndrome. The floor is yours, Keela.
Thank you, Shika. And good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Like Shika said, my name is Kayla McEwen, and I am the manager of grassroots advocacy at the National Down Syndrome Society. I am also known as the first registered lobbyist for Down syndrome. I lobby members of Congress on various issues that impact the Down syndrome community. I am also an ambassador for the Down Syndrome International for the United States of America. My job with the National Down Syndrome Society has given me a voice and a place where I know my input is valued. I believe that everyone should have the opportunity to belong somewhere, where they're just not physically in the room, but are meaningful, included in all aspects of the organization. Self-advocates who are differently abled want to be listened to, valued, and respect for the unique perspectives and experiences we bring to the table. The listen include respect guidelines developed by the Down Syndrome International and Inclusion International can help organizations to be more inclusive by ensuring that individuals with intellectual disabilities are getting the information that they need in a way that is accessible to them. They can share thoughts and experiences alongside everyone else and are treated as an equal, as part of a team. I hope that everyone in the audience today will take these guys everyone should have the same opportunity that I have had with the National Down Syndrome Society. And I do urge each and every one of you to make this a reality in your own organization. You can do this by implementing the recommendations and the listen, include, and respect guidelines. You can be the change maker that all people listen to, include, and respect in your organization. Thank you for attending today's events. And please remember, we are more alike than different. People with intellectual disabilities have so much to offer the world, just like our non-disabled peers. We just need the opportunity to have our voices be heard. And remember, nothing about us without us. Thank you. Shika?
Thank you, Keela. And now His Excellency, Mr. Kamira Tetsuya, is an ambassador for the Permanent Mission of Japan to the United Nations. He works in the Economic, Social, and the United Nations Management Affairs. He graduated from the Faculty of Law at the University of Tokyo in 1986. Since then, he has worked in countries all over the world and ministerial and governmental roles. The floor is yours, His Excellency.
Thank you, Chaika.
Thank you.
Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I would like to start by thanking Down Syndrome International and Inclusion International for organizing this event. As a signatory to the CRPD, Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Japan has been promoting various initiatives to remove social barriers that hinder full and effective participation and inclusion of persons with disabilities in society. In this vein, our government has been co-sponsoring events organized by Down Syndrome International at the World Down Syndrome Day Conference since 2013. And this year, on the occasion of the 15th session of the Conference of State Parties to the CRPD, we are also pleased to co-sponsor this event, which aims at developing international guidelines for inclusive participation of people with intellectual disabilities. Please allow me to introduce a few of the measures Japan is taking in this area. The Olympic and Paralympic Games Tokyo 2020 served as an excellent opportunity to promote the barrier-free mindset towards an inclusive society. Coupled with this event, our government adopted the Action Plan for Universal Design 2020, aimed at addressing social barriers for persons with disabilities through measures such as urban development based on universal design. Last year, Japan revised the Act for Eliminating Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities to mandate that businesses make reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities in diverse aspects of life. In this process, various opinions were heard from 19 organizations of persons with disabilities, including the Japan Down Syndrome Society. Japan will continue its efforts to realize a world without barriers that allows all people to fully develop their human potential in both national and international fora. I hope that this event provides us with an excellent opportunity to reflect on what is needed to reduce inequalities and to ensure the empowerment of persons with disabilities. I believe that the new guidelines will help people with intellectual disabilities take part in various activities in a meaningful way. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Dominic Cantor, who will be talking about how to use the guidelines. Dominic is a self-advocate from Argentina. Dominic works with the Fundación Posibilidad and has worked as a consultant for the Listening to Respect since 2020. The floor is yours, Dominic.
Bueno, hello a todos. Soy Dominic Cantor y vivo en Argentina. Colaboro en distintos proyectos para promover un estilo de lección y como validadora de lectura fácil para la Fundación Shiva, que es miembro de Inclusión Internacional. Para mí fue y es un orgullo ser parte de este proyecto de Inclusión Internacional. Además, agradezco con mi corazón que estas organizaciones piensen y trabajen para nosotros. Inclusión Internacional, internacional, especialmente la guía escolar, incluir y respetar una solución posible para mejorar la inclusión de personas con discapacidad en todo el mundo. Organizamos encuestas y grupos de referencia en todo el mundo para evaluar ¿Cuáles eran las barreras que nos impidieron participar? Las soluciones que encontramos y cuáles eran los mejores ejemplos para compartir. Analizamos la respuesta para entender los problemas que sean iguales o diferentes. Pero ¿cómo lo podemos solucionar en cada país? Tenemos que aprovechar los ejemplos y compartirlos. Y esta conclusión fue en todo el mundo por igual. Suele suceder que familias, amigos, comunidades, organizaciones no saben bien qué es la discapacidad intelectual. Y ese es el principal problema que genera la discriminación y la falta de apoyo. Por eso está excusar, interpretar. Es necesario para limitar a las personas del entorno y las plazas laborales. Para que puedan incluirlo plenamente. La pauta de escuchar, incluir y interpretar es una de las prácticas básicas y paso a paso. Sirven para las organizaciones puedan mejorar la inclusión y la diversidad. La idea es que las personas con discapacidad estén en todos los sectores de una organización. Pero más fácil hasta actuales de decisión. La isla es un documento con distintos capítulos. No es necesario saber ni los capítulos ni saberla de memoria, sino para consultar lo que haga falta. Por ejemplo, cómo hacer una reunión más inclusiva. ¿De qué se trata el capítulo? ¿Cómo se puede usar las islas? ¿Cuáles son las barreras? Así las organizaciones pueden analizar lo que nos pasa. Saber cómo hacer cada isla más inclusiva. Recomendaciones rápidas de inclusión. Y también cómo funcionar los cambios. Para que la isla sea más fácil de usar, el equipo de trabajo recomienda una página web. Trabajamos entonces en el formato de cambio de formato, llamamos un equipo de autogestores para validar la navegación de documentos y las imágenes. Así logramos un documento muy fácil de consultar. Por ejemplo, la organización quiere hacer una reunión en línea, saber cómo entra a la página web. Busca la parte de guía y la reunión. Elige reuniones en línea. Al final, hay una lista de pasos a seguir. Al final, van a encontrar ejemplos. Por ejemplo, cómo tomar nota o hacer una agenda es importante. Se hagan de cosas que no nos incluya la reunión. Deseo que la isla sirvan para informar, para que nos dé más posibilidades a las personas con discapacidad intelectual y que las organizaciones, espero que tal las organizaciones sean más abiertas. No tengan miedo. Ten en cuenta que el columno es bueno para tu trabajo también. Con la ayuda de calidad, muchas organizaciones van a llevar una buena sorpresa. Tengan coraje para hacer este cambio. Nosotros también podemos, nosotros también esperamos, podemos y queremos trabajar. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you, Dominique. So now I give the floor to my colleague, Tia Nellis, who will be moderating the upcoming roundtable discussion. Tia is a sales advocate from the USA and is a member of Sales Advocates Becoming Empowered of SABE, a USA network of self-advocates. Tia also works for the U.S. advocacy organization TASH. The floor is yours, Tia.
Thank you, Sheikha. First, I would like to introduce our panel. Firstly, we heard from Sheikha. Welcome, Sheikha, and thank you for joining our panel. Next, we have Luis Gabriel, is a self-advocate from Colombia. Luis is a regional representative for the Americas. Huh? I'm sorry. Luis Gabriel is a self-advocate from Colombia. Luis is the regional representative for the Americas and the...
Sorry, Tia, we can't hear you at all. Can you check your microphone?
I don't know. It's all the way up. Can you hear me now?
Can you try again, Tia?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. So,
okay.
For people who can't hear Tia, you need to go onto the original audio option on the translation. But it's fine, Tia. Go ahead. Sorry about that. If you could start again, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce our panel. Firstly, we have Sheikha, who you heard from before. Welcome, Sheikha, and thank you for joining us. Luis Gabriel is a self-advocate from Colombia. Luis is the regional representative for the Americas on the Council of Inclusion International. Luis works with Down Colombia. Mark is the next person, a self-advocate from Maui. Mark is the Vice President of Inclusion International and the founder of the organization Inclusion Rights in Malawi. And then we have Ali, is a self-advocate from Romania. Ali works with CD Swells as the co-president of Self-Advocate Organization in Romania. Ali also is a part of the steering committee of the European Platform for Self-Advocates, which is supported by Inclusion Europe. Let's let Ali go first. So Ali, the question is, what are barriers have you experienced at COSP or other big disability conferences?
Bună, eu sunt Moldovan Elisabeta din România.
Hello, my name is Moldovan Elisabeta and I am from Romania.
Sunt copreședintele Asociația Ceva de Spus, care este o asociație de autoreprezentanți.
I am the co-president of Ceva de Spus Association, which is a self-advocacy organization.
Sunt membru în bordul EPSA.
I am a member of in the steering group of European Platform of Self-Advocates.
Și puțin vreau să spun cu ce ne confruntăm ca persoane cu dizabilități intelectuale la diferite conferințe.
And I want to tell you what are the barriers we have to face at the big conferences.
Am observat că la conferințe foarte mari, persoanele cu dizabilități intelectuale se confruntă cu cuvinte ușor de înțeles, adică profesioniștii folosesc foarte des cuvinte grele.
I observed that at many conferences, the speakers use words which are hard to understand.
Așa că la conferințele EPSA, când participăm, avem 3 cartonașe.
So at the conferences which are organized by the European Platform of Self-Advocates, we have cards on 3 colors.
Unde folosim acele cărți unde spunem ce înțelegem și să vorbească mai încet.
And we use these cards to make sign for the speaker to stop or to speak slowly.
A doua problemă, am observat că sunt foarte multe persoane de sprijin unde nu traduc persoanelor cu dizabilități intelectuale.
Also, I saw that in many cases the support persons don't translate to the self-advocates what is about.
Așa că de multe ori persoanele cu dizabilități se află la aceea conferință și nu înțeleg absolut despre ce este vorba, tema conferinței.
In many cases, it happens that people with intellectual disabilities, even though they are at the conference, but they don't understand what is happening there and what is about.
Așa că e bine să fim cât mai mulți autoreprezentanți și să înțelegem că trebuie să fim ascultați și înțeleși.
And so it is very important to be as many self-advocates as possible and to make our voice heard. And it's important that people to listen to us.
A treia problemă am observat este foarte scurt timp pentru o persoană cu dizabilități intelectuale să vorbească.
Also, I saw that it's a very short time for self-advocates to speak.
Pentru că aceea persoană are nevoie de puțin timp mai mult.
Because we need more time when we speak.
Dacă este și cu traducere.
Especially if it is translation involved.
Am mai observat bariera că nu sunt informații destul în ușor de înțeles la foarte multe conferințe sau imagini.
Also in many conferences the information is not easy to understand.
Așa că de-aia mulțumim EPSE și Inclusion International și Inclusion Europe pentru că organizează conferințele așa de bine încât să înțelegem.
So this is why we are also grateful to Inclusion International, Inclusion Europe and EPSA for the conferences which are accessible to us.
Și încearcă să fie în ușor de înțeles toate conferințele pe care unde mergem.
And they try also to make these conferences easy to understand.
Mulțumesc.
Thank you, and that's it.
What ideas do you have to make sure that COSP is more inclusive?
Ce idei ai ca o conferință mare să fie mai inclusivă, să persoane cu dizabilități intelectuale să fie mai incluși? Ce trebuie să facă organizatorul unei conferințe?
Să includem mai multe pictograme în ușor de înțeles, pentru că de multe ori la o conferință te pierzi unde ajungi.
So it is important to have pictograms also before the starting of the conference because we have to get in the room somehow, so we have to know where to go.
A doua problemă ar fi să includă cât mai multe persoane cu dizabilitate intelectuală să vorbească.
It is very important to have people with intellectual disabilities as speakers.
Chiar dacă greșesc.
Even though we can make mistakes.
A doua trebuie să fie sprijinite de persoane de sprijin.
It is very important to have support persons.
Și să le explice în limba ușor de înțeles.
Who can translate in easy to understand if it is the case.
Și să le și traducă ceea ce se discută la o conferință.
And to translate what is the discussion about.
Cam asta ar trebui la o conferință să fie cât mai accesibilă și să fie o conferință mai accesibilă pentru toată lumea.
I think this would be more helpful to make a conference more accessible.
Și dacă se poate, 5 minute mai mult pentru persoane cu dizabilități intelectuale când vorbește.
And if it's possible to have 5 more minutes for the self-advocates when she or he is speaking.
Pentru că pentru o persoană cu dizabilitate e greu să se exprime și să explice acel lucru pe care îl dorește.
Because a self-advocate needs more time to explain what he wants or she wants to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your information. Let's move on to Mark now.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Mapemba, and to answer the question, I would start with the second one. When we are talking of what we can do as a UN to more inclusive. I think in terms of information, I think the organizers, they need to be well prepared when sharing information, talking of how they can share with several advocates or people with intellectual. The information should be easy to understand. Talking about their pages on websites, they should consider people with intellectual disability. Also on preparation and when they are identifying the speakers, I think it is good to use like these guidelines so that when they are prepared, they are making their speeches, they are sharing what they are doing. They should be on easy to understand so that most of the advocates should not be always using their support person, but on their own should understand. They should understand what people are saying because they are prepared something that is easy to understand. Talking about barriers that I've experienced, because I think it's something information, sometimes you can be on the meeting and because the speakers or the chair, they're not using friendly language, I can say, or it's not easy to understand. Sometimes you may sit in the meeting and don't understand what is going on. But if we can if they can be prepared, as I've said, and put it easy to read and easy to understand, I think it will help for people with intellectual disability to understand or to follow what is happening when we are attending such meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Louis, would you like to answer next?
Sí, muchas gracias por invitarme. Con mucho gusto, Tía. Yo creo que los problemas que solemos enfrentar creo que algunos de los problemas que solemos enfrentar a la hora de una presentación es el lenguaje y también que algunas presentaciones no tengan cosas accesibles como imágenes o como textos y además eso puede ser una traba. También puede ser accesibilidad en la parte móvil para personas que vengan en silla de ruedas o que tengan en muletillas. Eso, y mi consejo es que con estas guías también pueden aplicar que tengan primero que preparen los documentos en lectura fácil con imágenes y que esas imágenes queden adecuadas a la presentación. Después usar como unos textos más cortos y palabras más sencillas para que se puedan ser fáciles para traducir y también que se puedan compartir. También que las ideas queden bien desarrolladas de maneras cortas a través de los textos y que sean en textos también a párrafos también asequibles para esta forma. Y otra forma de que para la COSP pueda ser más adherida es que también se adhieran a unos horarios bien específicos. Si no alcanzan, se pueden tomar unos minutos extra y también que sienten las reglas a la hora de hablar. Respetuosos, enfocados y también, primero, que tienen que parar lo que estén haciendo. Segundo, que también si tienen preguntas, que levanten la mano como un código rojo por si no entendieron o si vamos muy rápido. Tercero, que si tienen dudas pueden preguntarnos si tienen alguna palabra que no entendieron. También si entendieron algo, levanten un código como verde de esta forma para saber que hayan entendido la información. Nos gustaría que también nos pudieras también la parte de la traducción, que también hubieras de estos textos ya pueden ser textos fáciles de ver y también fáciles de seguir la información con la traducción y de esta forma pudieran imprimir una gran impresión de colaboración. Eso colaboraría mucho porque a veces y también hacer que en el momento de llenar las guías de participación, la inscripción, tengan accesibilidad e iconos también para que dónde poner de esta manera. Y también de esta forma que en los textos, las guías y también la información tengan lo que se guía de tema, también imágenes, fotos y también de la imagen de la persona que se puede hacer de manera accesible y también la traducción. Yo, ¿qué más quiero decir también? Que otra cosa que puede ser es también es que también estas guías también deben aplicarse en las distintas partes de la información, en las distintas presentaciones que se pueden hacer para hacerlo más universal y de esta forma se puedan traducir y también se pueden tener en los documentos de guía fácil que siempre nos estén llenando y que nos den las instrucciones en paso a paso de manera corta y también accesible para que puedan entender. Bueno, espero que estas recomendaciones se hayan escuchado y que la experiencia que sobre los obstáculos y también sobre las oportunidades para mejorar la COSP para hacerla más accesible sirvan. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now we'll go on to Sheikha. What are your ideas?
So, thank you so much, Tia. I have a few ideas. One idea would be to provide a pre-meeting for self-advocates who are interested and want to more support to understand about the event, to create an easy-to-read agenda and schedule for the main event and also the side event. It is good to hear that easy-read agenda was available for the COSP this year, but it was still on the hard-to-use website with smaller text. Also, the people who run the site events really make their meetings accessible. I think the United Nations should share the disability respect guidelines and make sure that everyone who's running the events and meetings understand how to include us. It's not fair on us if we can only go to a few things. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of our panel for your great ideas and your presentations. A few things that I think that would be more helpful for self-advocates as a person going to a conference would be getting materials ahead of time, maybe easier for people to understand what's going to, the things they're going to be presenting is all about, and easier for them to make a decision on what they want to go to. Also, again, filling out the forms to register, making sure it's easy, and if people need support, who they can go to get that support. And making sure that people with disabilities understand each of the sessions. And if they're in a session, please don't use acronyms unless you tell us what they mean and what they stand for. Those are some of the things that are difficult at times at not only this conference, but other conferences also. And as you heard from many of the other panelists, to make sure things and materials are written in a way that people can understand them and be able to have the right support that they need ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. Now we're going to have our second roundtable discussion. Our panelists are Priscilla Geiser from the International Disability Alliance. Priscilla is the Director of Programs of the International Disability Alliance, which is an alliance of 14 global and regional organizations for people with disabilities. Inclusion International and Dance International are members to the International Disability Alliance. The second panelist we have is Tracy Van Gogh from Sight Savers. Tracy is a technical lead on the social inclusion and disability at Sight Savers. Sight Savers works in countries around the world to prevent blindness and work for the rights for the people with disabilities. And we're also going to have Alexandra Coate from the UNICEF. Alex works for the UNICEF as a disability and social protection specialist. Our first question we have is, why has your organization supported this work?
Hello, everyone. So my name is Priscilla Geiser. Thank you very much, Sheikha, for your introduction. Can you hear me okay?
Very well, thank you, Priscilla.
Thank you. So I will go on. So as Sheikha, you said, I work for the International Disability Alliance, or otherwise known as IDA. It's been a pleasure to hear to all the speakers and see the guidelines being completed. I have had the pleasure to be part of the discussions quite early on. And so it's good to see them coming to realization. IDA has invested in the guidelines because we thought it was very important to support inclusion and participation of persons with intellectual disabilities as one of the most underrepresented groups in the disability rights movement. And this was done in the context of a project to support inclusive employment, through which organizations of persons with disabilities, including IDA, but also Down Syndrome International and Inclusion International, learn to collaborate and also claim the space for participation with their partners. And so in this project, the guidelines were an important tools that Inclusion and DSI thought were important to develop, to tell our partners what is needed to include all groups, including persons with intellectual disabilities. So we think the guidelines were very important to invest in because they flag important preconditions to facilitate inclusion of persons with intellectual disabilities. And these guidelines can actually also be very beneficial for everyone else. They set a clear pathway for more inclusive processes, more inclusive documents, meetings, while it's also, I think, important to acknowledge that they will take time to implement. We believe that it was a very critical thing to develop because of the lack of visibility and lack of representation of persons with disability, with intellectual disabilities, including within the movement representing persons with disabilities. So that's my answer to your first question, Chaika.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from our other panelists in this event. Thank you.
Thanks, Chaika, and thank you for inviting me to join this event.
You're welcome.
Today, I am representing Sight Savers. and we promote the right of people with disabilities to participate equally in society. We do this through advocacy, but also through programs designed to show what works to achieve inclusion. But programming on disability rights in a way that's truly inclusive is not as straightforward as it would seem. And despite good intentions, it's not always easy to ensure equal participation by women and men with disabilities because of gender inequality, for example. But at the same time, disability is such a broad term, which applies to many different impairments. So many people may be overlooked and they may not be as visible within the organizations with which we work. We've already heard that people with intellectual disabilities experience particular challenges. And we know in Sightsavers that we've got more to do to ensure that we include everybody. So we're really excited to be able to be part of this work that Down Syndrome International and Inclusion International are doing. We know that from our own experience, how important it is, not just because it's linked to the Sustainable Development Goals and the call to leave no one behind, but because it is the right thing to do. And I'm particularly delighted that self-advocates are in the lead in developing and promoting the guidelines, because that's the way it should be. And we in Sightsavers, as our allies, are happy to provide the support we can, and we will be working closely with you as you go through the sort of next stage in this process. So we're anticipating, we're hoping that the guidelines will help us do our job better, because if we are truly committed to disability inclusion, we can't say we're doing that if we're leaving some people at the back of the queue. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Sheikha, for this introduction and for inviting me in this event. I guess I would like to give the perspective more of a user. I have benefited in the work that we've done of this work that Inclusion and DSI have done on the guidelines. I work on social protection, and it's a quite complicated topic. There are many things to discuss, many different schemes that government have to put in place to support persons with disabilities. And when organizing consultation, it's not always easy to ensure that everybody is part of the conversation. And even when we try to include organization of persons with disabilities, I would say that persons with intellectual disabilities are not always well represented in national organizations. And we have been working with Inclusion. They helped us produce some material to explain key element of social protection for persons with disability in easy read, but also, and most importantly, while doing so, we saw that self-advocates gain a very important knowledge that prepare them also to take part in important conversation. And I think that this is something that all of us need to be more aware of, is that when we say, oh, we consult with persons with disabilities, it needs to be with all persons with disabilities, and it may require a little extra effort. It may require going the extra mile. And I think those guidelines are a very good resource to know how to do that. Because when I discuss with my colleagues, I don't face often the refusal of action of people want to consult, but very often they are a bit afraid. They don't know how to. How do we talk? How do we interact? And I think those guidelines really provide a strong resource to approach that and to be more inclusive. Over.
Thank you, Alexandra. The second question is, has your organization planning on using the guidelines?
Thank you again, Sheikha. So I have not had the opportunity to scroll through all the pages of the guidelines yet, but I know from what I have seen that there are lots of tips that IDA already implements. And so what I think is that these guidelines will be a new tool that is more comprehensive, and that was also developed with a lot of people, and congratulations to the many contributors. And we will continue to improve our work using these guidelines. So far, I would say that IDA has put a lot of attention to bring persons with intellectual disabilities on board in our work, which is often cross-disability work. For example, through bridge training, we have been using inclusive contents and also more inclusive methods, such as bringing illustrators during the training sessions, but also working with persons with intellectual disabilities as speakers and as training facilitators. And through this, one thing that is really important is that we have experienced how accessibility and adjustments for persons with intellectual disabilities is often beneficial for all participants. So I think this is a key message also of the Listen, Include, Respect guidelines. And while the guidelines were not finalized yet, we have also worked with Down Syndrome International and Inclusion International with a group of self-advocates who have advised and tested and recommended the development of an easy read function of iData, which is the accessible online survey platform that is used by IDA for online surveys. And this was also a very positive experience enacting or practicing many of the tips of the guidelines. Still room for improvement, but we were very happy, for example, to see that thanks to this investment in an easy read survey, we multiplied the number of respondents with intellectual disabilities by 8 times more people with intellectual disabilities responded to our last survey. So as we go on, and for example, we will develop a new online platform, we will use the guidelines to consider how we can create a more user-friendly interface, something that is accessible and easy to navigate. And as I said before, I think we also want to continue using the guidelines as one of the tools to promote inclusive practices, inclusive programming, with our partners. So on that note, I really want to thank you again for all the work. I think it was a very valuable, long but very valuable process. And we will invite all organizations to think about their own organizational culture to make those reasonable accommodation adjustments to be more inclusive of persons with disabilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Priscilla. I will hear some information with Tracy.
Thank you. So we intend in Sightsavers to use the Listen, Include, Respect guidelines in a range of ways, but I will highlight just 3. Firstly, Sightsavers has many tools that we use to promote inclusion. These include accessibility guidance, we have disability awareness trainings. So the first thing we're going to be doing will be to review those resources with a new lens, i.e. using the guidelines to cross-reference and to improve and update our existing materials. The second way is that we will be testing them in our programs. So we have programs on health, on livelihoods, on political participation, which are designed to increase the participation of people with disabilities. And we want to use them in our programs to promote greater inclusion of all people. And thirdly, we'll also be using our partnerships with many other organizations to share the guidelines as a way to promote deeper understanding about the exclusion that people with intellectual disabilities face and to raise awareness that there are ways to overcome that, such as using tools like yours. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll hear from Alexandra.
Thank you, Cheka. So I think what I wanted to say, Tracy covered. UNICEF is a very, very big organization. So we have planning, for instance, frontline training, frontline workers training on disability inclusion, which is something that has been developed for some time now, which will be rolled out next year. And for instance, the guideline can be a very useful resource that are provided for our colleagues in the field to basically understand better when we mean diversity of person with disabilities and inclusion of young person with intellectual disabilities, what does it mean and how to do it. But maybe since Tracy covered those key points, I wanted to highlight another element, which I mentioned last week in the meeting we had with different UN agencies. It's the whole issue of accountability. When you have a very big organization like UNDP or UNICEF or others, the message, may take time to go to all the countries where we have offices. And I think it's very important for organization of self-advocates in different countries to connect with our offices and our colleagues and show them, introduce the guidelines. Showing, no more excuse. We have the tools. We did our work as Inclusion International, as DSI. We did our work. We did our share. Now it's up to you. And I think it's very important because, as I mentioned, very often colleagues say, we don't know how. And I think those guidelines are a good way to say, yes, now you know. And I think it will take time. I think we need to be honest with that. It will take time. And it's this conversation that we need to create at all level, including at country level in different programs, so that step by step, it becomes part of the usual way I prepare a meeting. It's the part of the usual way I create a document. Like, it's not something that will be, oh, I really need to do that. It's something, yeah, it's part of it. Like, for instance, when my colleagues create terms of reference for a consultant to prepare a project or a document, it will be included and there will be a reference to the guidelines saying, and this is the way you do it. So I really think that we have all those different ways, but it will require this accountability also and this engagement at country level to make sure that this is effective. Over.
Thank you, Alexandra. We have a last question that is, how do you think the event you are part of or running at a cost can be more inclusive and accessible?
Thank you, Shaker. Can you hear me again?
Of course, it's really good. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, I think many things have been said already on that in the previous panel. I think as IDA playing an important role in the organization of the Forum for Civil Society ahead of the Conference of State Parties, the guidelines will once again be a very useful tool to share with a lot of participants, but also, as Alex was saying before, try to promote a culture of how we can do things differently from scratch and make this more systematic, make this more of a reflex for people to consider alternative formats, use simpler languages, because eventually this is beneficial to all. And I think participation has a virtuous effect, a positive effect, that the more persons with intellectual disabilities can be parts of the picture and say and claim how and what is needed for them to be included, the more people will think about including persons with intellectual disabilities. So we hope that the guidelines can be a starting point to generate and to initiate a process that will amplify with the time. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from Tracy.
Thanks. To be honest, Shaika, I have nothing more to add. I think everybody has said and made many recommendations about how to make these events more accessible. And I would concur with everything that's said already. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. We will hear from Alexandra himself.
I would just like to take my own experience and say, just do it. Don't be too anxious. I think it's something we all have different representation and sometimes prejudice, and it will be complicated. And actually, I have been in several meetings and conferences, and engaging with self-advocate has always been rewarding. Has always been an experience. And I think and you have been quite forgiving, actually, and providing guidance also, and helping us to be more inclusive. So I want to insist on this dialogue, on this co-production of the inclusion, but just do it. I think it's the message I would like to share. Over.
Thank you. Thank you for our panelists. I will now give the floor to Mark Mapemba for the closing remarks. The floor is yours, Mark.
Thank you. Just a sec. Can you hear me?
Of course, Mark. It's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the dialogue, the ideas on this. Your Excellency and everyone, as we have heard, the Listen Inclusive Respect guideline will help organizations to work with people with disability. We are looking forward to when your organizations, government, and other institutions will take advantage of these guidelines so that they will bring inclusion into all different sectors. As I'm looking forward to them making a big difference to people with intellectual disabilities. At the end of the day, if you follow the guidelines and work with people with intellectual disabilities, it will help to bring more of us to the table on decision making. We were able to take part and share everything we need. Having our voice heard will mean we are no longer left behind. The key message I want to share is you organizations that work on disabilities should be the first ones to use the guidelines. You have a responsibility to include us. Talk to us and find out how to understand, use and follow the guidelines in your work. It will not be easy fix. It will be a journey. You will need time and resources. You will need to build up the ability of people with intellectual disabilities. We will collect your good examples and share them so Others can see how they are working and being put to practice. Your example will role model to others how it should be done. People with intellectual disabilities need to be pushed to the front. We have been excluded for too long. You have told us you needed advice and tools to understand how to include us. Now you have them, so please use them. We need your encouragement. We need your commitment. Thank you very much.
Just before we finish, Shaker, we just have an intervention from one of our co-sponsors. So this is from the Permanent Mission of Brazil to the UN. So I'd like to give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador João Janicio de Almeida Filho, Deputy Permanent Representative for the Permanent Mission of Brazil to the UN. The floor is yours, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I'll be very brief. But what I'm going to say is something that I feel in my heart, that you have done a very, very important work with the guidelines. The guidelines is the product of a survey with 1,500 people in 100 countries. This is not a small thing. This is a very big thing. And also, it is very detailed. So, as Alexander has said, we have the tools now. We have the tools, and we have to spread it. And we know how and learn better how to use it. And the side event, moreover, prepares us for the conference and to be at the conference with another tool and to be a more valuable participant in the conference. So thank you for Inclusion International Council, for Down Syndrome International Council, and to Ambassador Kimura. It's a pleasure to be a co-sponsor of this event, and it has been a pleasure to take part in it. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, João. I'm afraid we have run out of time. A big thank you to all our speakers. Thank you to our sponsors for the event, for the support. And Keystone Human Services, also the IDA, also the Site Savers and the Permanent Mission of Japan, Poland, and Brazil. Please visit our Listening to Respect website, and we will still working on the website. We're still working on the website. We have some changes to make. Please be patient while we continue to work on it. We need your help to make sure it works for everyone. Please give us feedback on how to improve the website. For more information on Listening to Respect, please email here of the Listening to Respect or follow the hashtag even. Thank you for attending, and I hope you have a good day.